They called it a procedural clarification. That was the phrase Delegate Arbiter Sorven used when he opened the session. Procedural clarification, chit. As though stripping Earth's provisional membership from the Imperial Compact were a matter of housekeeping, something to be resolved between the morning's trade licensing renewals and the afternoon recess. I had been an envoy for 11 years. I knew what a procedural clarification looked like. This was not one. The chamber of the Imperial Compact seated 412 delegates. Across 7-tiered arcs, each arc representing a block: the Vahari Mercantile Consortium, the Threnic Stellar League, the Ossian Hereditary Houses, 4 others whose names I will not reproduce here because they no longer matter. The floor was pale composite stone, the lighting cool and institutional, the air recycled to a temperature each block found separately tolerable, and that I found faintly unpleasant. I had sat in that chamber 31 times over 9 years. I knew the way sound moved in it, particular resonance of a motion being called, when the outcome was already decided. Sorven read the motion. Earth's provisional membership, granted under the Compact's Transitional Access Framework, was to be suspended pending a full re-application under the Standard Member Evaluation process. Standard Evaluation, 47 procedural steps, an observation period of no fewer than 6 years, unanimous approval from all 7 blocks. The Vahari block had blocked standard applications 11 times in the previous decade alone. There was no polite interpretation of what was being proposed. I sat at the floor table, which is where provisional members sat, not in the arcs, not in the tiered seating, but at a single long table on the chamber floor, in full view of everyone and below everyone. There were 3 of us. Myself, my deputy Carson Mole, and our technical attaché. 412 delegates looked down at us. This, too, was intentional. The motion was seconded by the Ossian block before Sorven had finished reading it. The Threnic block's senior delegate, a long-limbed figure named Varric Doe, leaned forward in his seat and tapped his authorization panel. First affirmative registered. He did not look at me. I had known this was coming for 4 months. We had known precisely, since the Compact's Administrative Secretariat had quietly reclassified Earth's provisional dossier from active standing to pending review. A classification change that meant nothing officially and everything practically. Because it was the same reclassification that had preceded the suspension of the Cathari delegation 8 years earlier, and the Pelosi Trade Assembly 6 years before that. Neither had recovered their standing. Both had eventually accepted associate status, carried no voting rights, and required annual licensing fees paid to the Compact's Central Fund. That was what this was. The vote was a formality. The outcome was the point. Sorven called for block confirmations in order of seniority. The Vahari block's senior delegate lifted one broad hand and spoke a single word in his own language, which the translation system rendered as affirm. The Ossian houses followed, the Threnic block. I watched each panel light up along the arc displays, green, green, green. Reached into the document case beside my chair. What I placed on the table was not large. A bound folio, 12 pages, sealed with the mark of Earth's Office of Interstellar Affairs, and countersigned. And this is the part I will ask you to hold in your mind. Countersigned by the trade ministers of 41 independent stellar systems. 41 systems that were not members of the Imperial Compact, had never been members of the Imperial Compact, and had, over the previous 9 years, been quietly approached, cultivated, and brought into a separate framework that required no Compact licensing, no Compact oversight, and no Compact approval. The folio was a notice of treaty termination. Earth was withdrawing from the Transitional Access Framework, effective immediately, under Clause 7 of the framework's own dissolution provisions, a clause the Compact's legal architects had included as a formality, never expecting anyone to invoke it because no provisional member had ever had anywhere else to go. I stood. Carson and the attaché stood with me. I did not speak. There was nothing that's needed saying. The document said it. The 41 counter-signatures said it. 9 years of quiet work said it. We walked to the chamber doors. Behind us I heard Sorven's voice, not yet alarmed, still formal, calling for the record to note that the Earth delegation had vacated the floor table without seeking recognized floor time. A procedural note, neat and orderly. I pushed open the door. The corridor outside was empty and cool. Carson exhaled once, a long, slow breath, and said nothing. We walked. I learned later what happened in the chamber after we left. I was not there for it, and I will tell it plainly, because I have no interest in embellishing what was already sufficient. Sorven concluded the vote. All 7 blocks affirmed. Earth's provisional membership was formally suspended. The motion carried unanimously. The result logged to the Compact's central record. Took 11 minutes from the moment we walked out to the moment the gavel came down. Routine, efficient, final. Then the Compact's legal secretariat opened the folio. The 41 signatures were verified against the Interstellar Treaty Registry in the first hour. All legitimate. All predated the session by between 3 months and 9 years, the oldest countersignature belonging to a small systems cluster in the outer Vihari frontier zone. Systems the Vihari Mercantile Consortium had long considered too minor to court. The legal secretariat cross-referenced the framework's dissolution clause. The clause was unambiguous. Earth's withdrawal was valid, immediate, and irrevocable without Earth's consent. The Compact's licensing hold over Earth flag trade routes dissolved at the moment we walked out. Not when the folio was read. Not when the Secretariat confirmed the signatures. The moment we left the floor, the session was suspended for 6 hours while the legal division reviewed the framework documents. During that time, 3 of the 41 counter-signatory systems filed formal notification with the Compact that they were activating the trade terms in the new framework effective that day. By the following morning, 9 more had filed. The Compact issued a formal request for an emergency reconvening of the Earth delegation. We acknowledged receipt and did not respond. I have been asked many times, in the years since, what I was thinking as we walked out of that chamber. Whether there was satisfaction in it. Whether I felt, in that moment, the weight of what we had spent 9 years building finally making itself known. The honest answer is that I felt tired. I felt the specific tiredness of someone who has held to think carefully for a very long time and has finally been allowed to set it down. I had sat in that chamber 31 times. I had listened to Sorvin and Varric Doe and the Vihari block's successive senior delegates speak about Earth's provisional status in the Tones 1, uses for a subordinate who has not yet understood their position. I had nodded at the correct moments. I had filed the correct forms. He had entered the correct exceptions and said the correct things at them. And in the margins of all of it, in the spaces, the Compact did not watch because it had decided we were not worth watching. We had worked. 41 systems, 9 years, 12 pages. The Compact requested direct negotiations 4 times over the following year. We met with them once, as a courtesy. The terms we offered were fair, in my assessment. More fair than the transitional access framework had ever been to Earth. The Compact's senior legal counsel described them, in a communication I was not officially meant to see, as terms written by people who no longer needed the agreement to succeed. He was not wrong. The chamber of the Imperial Compact still seats 412 delegates. I am told the floor table is still there. I do not know what they use it for now. I have not been back. There is a version of this story in which the walkout was the victory, in which the moment the doors closed behind us was the moment everything changed. I understand why people tell it that way. The doors make a clean image. The empty table makes a clean image. But the doors were only the last step. The work was the 9 years before them. 41 names on 12 pages. The quiet conversations in the margins of summits the Compact considered routine. They wrote themselves and never thought to fear. That was the victory. The walkout was just how we left.